Alright, well, good morning everybody, and thank you so much for joining us, supporting such a great cause. Thank you, SpeedGaming, for letting me get to stream this awesome game. This is Destiny of an Emperor. If you're familiar with the Dynasty Warriors series, or the Three Kingdoms series, this is kind of the original Three Kingdoms video game for the NES, and it's a great game, and should have more people playing it. But so I'm going to get started here, and so it starts off with these three guys, Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei, basically coming together. We're born on different days, but we're going to die together, you know, kind of declaring themselves brothers under the peach tree. And then we come here to this guy who's telling us, hey, these guys called the Yellow Scarves are causing us problems, the precinct leader is asking you to help quell these insurrectionists, etc., etc. And so the first thing we're going to do, as you would do in any RPG, is die. So it turns out a glitch that was found in recent memory, or I mean, like in the last year, if we do a specific thing where we get Guan Yu and Zhang Fei killed off, and then do a cancel action with Liu Bei, we just basically exterminate some generals. We remove them from the game. And that includes all three of the Yellow Scarves. So this battle right here is generally one that is just a nightmare to deal with. Casually, or even in the speedrun, it was pretty nasty to deal with. And instead, we get to do this, and the next time we go visit this battle, Zhang Zhao will be gone. And it will be a much more convenient way of dealing with everything. So now we'll actually get started with the game the way it was meant to be played. We'll go equip these weapons that conveniently come start with us. And we're going to talk to this guy right here. He's going to give us some money and some food. Food is an interesting mechanic in this game that will have absolutely no bearing on the speedrun for us. Every time you take a step, your party consumes a certain amount of food, but every time you beat a set battle, you get food, and we will get food faster than we will use it throughout the run, so that's kind of an irrelevant mechanic at this point. You'll just see we gain a certain number of rations as text when we beat the various set battles here. So this is the first battle we're going to go to. This used to be Zhang Bao, Cheng Wanji, and a rebel force. Now, as we see, it's just a rebel force. So this is what the beauty of the extermination glitch is. Unfortunately, it only can extend to a few generals just because of the way the buffer overwrite that causes it, where the index it comes off of. But we do make good use of it. So we're going to go find one of the many, many hidden weapons here in this axe. One of the interesting mechanics of this game is, unlike most RPGs, you don't gain, like, strength at the end of when you go up a level. Your generals have a specific number of strength. They also have a number of soldiers, which is the kind of HP equivalent in this game. And the number of soldiers you have affects how much damage you will do. And it's based upon thresholds on the number of digits. And there's a multiplier that's times 2, or that's the square of the number of digits. So when you have 3 digits in your HP, your multiplier is 9. If you have 2, it's 4. So when you drop below that threshold, you're doing less than half damage. And so that threshold's going to be a very important feature throughout the run. And that's why we give Liu Bei the axe. Even though Guan Yu and Zhang Fei are stronger, Liu Bei is going to stay over 3 soldiers for longer, and therefore he's going to do more damage in the long run. So now we come back to this battle that we died at before, and we are going to All Out again. Now, All Out is a fun feature in this game, which is basically your generals are going to randomly attack their generals are going to do their turns like normal, but it's a way to wrap up battles that don't need to take a whole lot of time. Menuing in this game is pretty slow, And so if you get a chance, so whenever you get a chance, you want to do the all-out because it speeds up battles dramatically. Each turn that you aren't doing all-out costs about 20 seconds, so every time you have this opportunity, you want to take advantage of it. So now we've taken this much easier battle out. We're going to gain a level, we're going to learn a tactic, and we're going to gain some tactical points. Ideally, we want to go up to 15 here. We got 14. 14's average. You have a 50% chance of getting 14. 3 out of 8 chance of getting... of getting 4. You start with 10. You have a 1/2 chance of getting 4 tactical points, a 3/8 chance of getting 5 tactical points, and a 1/8 chance of getting 3 tactical points. That's a bad thing to get. So we're always hoping for 4. We're always hoping for 5, but 4 is okay. We can get by with 4. So now we've taken care of what should have been the Zhang Zhao fight. And we're going to move on to the next spot if Han Zhang will leave us alone. Random encounters in this game can be really obnoxious and are a huge source of RNG at the beginning of the run, but we can do things to mitigate that later on. We have items that can prevent random encounters, so this will be painful right now, but eventually it'll not be much of a factor. Until we actually want to get encounters, and then inevitably cannot. So here we were supposed to fight Zhang Liang plus 2 rebel forces. Again, we removed him from the game, so that becomes a non-issue. And now we're going to make me Geostrategist. And so the way... tactics are basically the spell equivalent in this game. And the way it works is you have a strategist who has a list of tactics, and those tactics are available to your entire party under a... but your whole party has a set number of tactical points they can use, so each one costs that. So tactical points are like MP, but it's shared among the entire party, and it's based upon your party's number of tactical points and the intelligence of your general as to what tactics you have, how much you can use them, etc., etc. So that's why we want to gain as many tactical points as possible, because that's necessary for our entire party. So we finished these guys off. That battle is supposed to be one of the hardest in the game. It's supposed to actually deter you from doing that because there's supposed to be a back way you can handle it. But because it's supposed to have Zhang Zhao, Zhang Bao, and Zhang Liang in it. But because we got rid of them, that battle was a pretty easy one. So now we come to this precinct leader that had sent us off to go to the Yellow Scarves. He's now sick, and he's asking Liu Bei to take his place. So, because of that, he takes place as the precinct leader, and he sends his son along to work to help us instead. So now, we're going to do a tiny bit of menuing to get ourselves set up for the next section of the game, which is actually one of the most dangerous ones. There's just very little you can do in a death, because if you die, you would have to use a resurrect to bring your party member back. And that's just obnoxious from an inventory management standpoint later on in the run, but at the beginning of the run, it's prohibitive from a financial standpoint, because the resurrects cost 100. The resurrects cost 100 gold each, and you only have so much gold. So we're going to buy 5 resurrects here and hope that gets us through the rest of the early game, or we can have some problems. Later on, when the money routing's not so tight, it's still obnoxious because you have to carry the resurrects, you have to use them, it's a time sink, but it's not nearly as problematic. This is the one time in the game we're going to buy actual healing items, because we're going to use them to allow us to prevent us from going back to an inn at one point. Alright, we don't want to have BG as the strategist anymore. The thing about the strategist is that they will go to the back of the party, and the manner in which you take damage is based upon... actually, I want to safety save here, because the next battle doesn't usually go wrong, but it can, and as I said, if we wipe, it's going to be a major, major problem for us. So, in general, if you wipe there, that's a reset, but we obviously don't want to be resetting here, so we're just going to do a quick safety save just in case. So this next battle is another one. This is a theme at the early game. The early game has a really, really steep difficulty curve, and you have to, and casually you'd end up grinding quite a few levels to get through this. And this battle is the next one. That's the hardest battle of the game so far. Fortunately for us, Li Su, who's supposed to be with Huaxiang and has 299 soldiers, was also exterminated. And so we will not have to fight him, which means with just one general to go up against, it's a much, much more successful fight. Now, most likely we will lose 1 to 2 generals in this fight anyway, but it's one we can just all out, whereas we had to, before, plan the battle out a little better. Yeah, we just lost Miji. It's okay, we'll bring him back in a little bit. We got another 4 tactical points from that level. Experience is, or in the set battles, we have, in the set battles in this game, there are rebel forces, and the hit points, or the soldiers of those rebel forces, are random between a certain range. And the amount of experience you get is based upon the hit points of the soldiers, of the enemies that you fight at these battles. So, depending upon how the rebel forces roll, you will get different amounts of experience. And that becomes relevant to us in a little bit. There is a level that historically was impossible to level up at when you had a tactician that could learn a tactic at that level. And you only gain tactical points on a level where a tactician in your party learns a tactic. And so it was a loss of potentially 5 tactical points throughout the run, and that becomes really significant later on. But with the removal of the yellow scarves, there is a chance that we will have low enough experience that when we get that battle that historically would always take us to level 12, we won't quite hit it, and we'll be able to get the next tactician that can learn the level 12 tactic. It's called Fu Bing. And so that's what we're hoping for. We hope we don't go up that level, and so we can learn the tactical points at that level, because, again, that will make later game easier for us. The tactical points you gain don't hurt you a whole lot right now, but in late game you want as many as possible, because it could be, running out of tactical points can cost you 10 minutes on the run if things go awry. So now we're wandering through this gold key cave here, where we're basically going all the way through it to try to find a cave. This is a major source of consternation for runners because of the amount of RNG for random encounters. Can just, the difference in time of this cave can be minutes, and it always feels just brutal. Again, later on we can mitigate the RNG, but the encounter RNG, but this is the place where it hurts us the most. By my estimation, we'll end up getting somewhere between 16 and 24 encounters in this cave most of the time, and we'll fail to run from 4 to 5 of those. So, it can be obnoxious. But, we're getting this gold key, which we will have great use for in a short period of time. But the other nice thing about going for the gold key cave, which is, it kind of feels like it's out of the way, but even the task goes for it, because at the very front of this cave, there will be a new general who's going to, once we got this gold key, it brought a general to the front of this cave who's going to join us, and is going to be the strongest person this side of Guan Yu and Zhang Fei that we have seen up to this point, and will see for a very short period of time. But he'll be the strongest we could have on our party for a little while. So it's very important to get him. He's very helpful. And the gold key will also be of great use to us later, and so we want to make this whole obnoxious trek. You'll notice I kind of hug the northern walls in these. in some of the cave tile sets, these shadows are safe squares where I cannot get encounters. So I will generally hug these northern walls in the turns, or in the caves in which it's helpful. So we're almost back to the end of this thing, and I'll mention we're still getting the encounters that we were getting at the very first area of the game. This cave is not actually in the first area of the game, it's in the second area of the game. But the enemy set that caves draw from is based upon the last place you took a battle. The last zone you took a battle in. And in this case, that Huaxiang is still slated for Zone 1, and so because we didn't encounter a random battle on our way into the cave from that battle, we get to have an easier enemy set here, which is really nice because the higher level group can really cause problems. Alright, so now we got Guanping. I should have mentioned earlier that I picked up this thing in the overworld here called Chituma. That was something that confused us as children. We didn't know what it was, what it did. We actually called the Nintendo Power hotline to find out what it did, and they told us it did nothing. So, we would stop getting it and whatnot. Well, it turns out that it's actually... there's a hidden agility stat in this game that is not addressed or made note of anywhere. But Chituma, whoever is holding Chituma, which is a horse, it's actually Lu Bu's horse here, whoever is holding Chituma will have a 50% increase in agility. So because Liu Feng has Chituma, you will see him go first most of the time. Later on, we'll use that because we are going to need to go first and have someone go first and in turn to lay in the tactic. And so it becomes very, very important later on. It's already very nice right now. And so, yeah. So I've got this tactic called Lianhua. Now, if you don't know Chinese, these are going to, even if you do, some of these names are misnomers anyway. It's kind of hard to tell what it is, but this Lianhua that I'm using here is basically a fire spell. So it does damage. It does fire damage, which the type of damage doesn't really make a whole lot of difference unless you use certain tactics to prevent types of damage. So now we got rid of Lu Bu. Lu Bu is nasty. He is the strongest warlord in the game, and Liru is interesting because he has a much stronger fire tactic, and he can. But if he attacks, he does almost nothing. So he'll either do 2 damage or 100 damage. And there's no in between. And so he did the 100 to Zhang Fei here. We'll have to resurrect Zhang Fei shortly. Now we're going to gain 2 levels here. We're going to hope for 23 right now. We just got a 4, but that's okay. We're going to hope for 27 now. 26. Still, average is okay. We just don't want to see any 3 levels. Yeah, Shahali has made a great point here. When you've defeated a general at a castle or any kind of set battle, for the most part, if you encounter them in random battle and defeat them, you will have the opportunity to recruit them. They will ask for certain things in order to join your party. Sometimes money, sometimes horses, sometimes they'll join regardless, or just straight up join. Sometimes they'll refuse to join. But you have the opportunity to recruit them into your party, and that's generally how you're intended to grow your party. But we aren't going to be taking use of that for a little while, actually at all, because it takes time to hunt down those generals. So we're only going to take the generals that the game gives us in a much more convenient fashion. So now we're going to make our way here to Luoyang. Luoyang is the capital of China at this point in time, but it has recently been burned down and taken over by Dongjua, and so we are trying to handle that particular issue right now, going on and taking care of Dongjua, who's causing all sorts of problems and taking over the capital. So we're gonna go head that way. We've got these gates in front of it. That's a common thing you'll see in the game is the castles have a gate or two, or sometimes three, in front of them that you have to get through in order to get to the actual castle fight. Usually the gate battles are pretty simple. They're just enough to lower your resources to be obnoxious. This next battle is the last one that the extermination glitch is useful for. There should be another general here called Guoji who has about 400 soldiers, who is no longer in this battle because he was exterminated. He was actually, him by himself was actually known about ages ago, but every other general that you exterminated was a recent find. We're going to gain another level. We're going to be hoping for 31 tactical points here, and we get 30. So we've been perfectly average this whole time. Again, that's not really a big problem. So now we're going to use these healing tactics, or healing items, to recover 100 soldiers for each of our attacking generals. This continues the theme of, this is the hardest battle in the game so far that really, really causes problems casually, and can be obnoxious even here. This can end runs as well, but we're gonna hope it doesn't. The tactics... A tactic can fail to land in this game. Whether they fail to land is based upon the difference... Or whether they land or fail to land is based upon the difference between the intelligence of the generals. The amount of damage they do is based upon the higher of strength or agility of the general. Both of those missing is very unlikely because Dongjua is not a smart general, but it still happens. So as you can see, both Dongjua and Lu Bu hit very, very hard, and so that's why this battle can be such a pain. So we're trying to get one of them down as quickly as possible. We've got one more turn where we have tactics we can use. And in an ideal world, we're going to get him below 100 before he attacks, but that did not happen. But as long as Guan Yu lands this, then Dongjua is gone. Now what we'll do here is we'll do a quick all-out to see how this plays out, until somebody gets in really bad shape. Don't care so much about Miji. We don't have any tactical points left, so losing our tactician is not a big deal yet. As long as we get him under 100, he'll only start doing 30 damage, because that threshold, and so not a bad battle. So now we come in, as I said, this place is burnt. Let's use your resurrect. Yeah, and we'll make you strategist again. So we're going to go find this little keyhole here, and we're going to use the gold key in it, and we're going to get a thing called the gem sword. At some point, you talk to somebody out here, and they mention that the warlord Lu Bu that we dealt with earlier, who has maximum strength in this game, really likes shiny objects. So we picked up that shiny, and we are going to see if we can convince him to leave the opposition by presenting the shiny object to him. Now, he's not a very smart man, so sometimes he doesn't recognize the shiny object in front of his face. We are hoping he wisens up as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, the reason we're continuing to go forward is that after we got Dongjua at Luoyang, he then retreated to Chang'an. So we're heading towards Chang'an to go continue to deal with the problem that is Dongjua. Alright, so here's where we deal with the shiny. We're going to try to show it to him and see what happens. And that happens a lot. You show it to him, he's like, "What's that?" Well, it's a shiny sword that I'm trying to give to you. But unfortunately he did not recognize it, so we will have to take a second opportunity at it. Don't know what the odds are. We assume that they're 50-50. Oops. We assume that they're 50-50. He's going to accept or not accept. But he continues to not recognize it. This is where we start screaming, "Come on, take the shiny!" Alright, we're going to try yet again. Oops. Lubu's going to continue to cause us problems, and he still says, "What's that?" So we are having unfortunate RNG at the moment. There we go. Finally, he's like, "Oh, that's the gem sword." So, you give it to him, and he asks if he can join your side. Then he tells you about this, where Chituma is, his horse. He says it's, 1 yard south, 8 yards west, but he doesn't actually give you a reference point from that. And so, unless you search from every location, it's really hard to actually figure out where he's talking about. But we know it's from the fortress where we fought Huaxiang, because we picked it up already. So now we're just going to all out, because these guys aren't particularly problematic now, although Lubu's done enough damage to us they could be. We're going to finish that off, and now we're going to get Lubu. 35? 35! We finally got a 5 level. So, we're going to go to a quick in-trip. And I'm going to find yet another hidden item. Now, at this point, we have 6 party members, but in battle you can only carry 5. Now, which party member is left out is based upon where they are in your party order, except for the fact that the tactician in your party will always be in the last spot. So if you have a tactician and you have more than 5 people in your party, that tactician will no longer show up in the party. Now, generally speaking, you're going to be carrying a general you also don't want to show up in the party for various reasons, mainly because they're not very strong. So tacticians are nice for their tactics, but they're not usually that great to have in battle unless they offer you something else as well, because you only have a limited number of tactical points. So oftentimes you want to keep 2 guys out of battle if you have 2 tacticians in your party. Now the problem with that is you can't just put one of those in 7th, because if a tactician learns a tactic and is in the 7th slot in your party, there is a glitch that can happen. That was the bane of many, many casual runs. And basically, if it sees, every time it finds a tactician that learns a tactic, it looks at the next slot in the party to see, hey, does this tactician learn a tactic too? And it updates the tactic data for all these generals when it finds them. Well, if the 7th general learns one, it continues to look on and say, hey, does the 8th general learn one? Well, there is no 8th general. And so it starts looking in random spots in memory. If it finds the spot in memory that finally it convinces it it's a general that should learn something, then, and tell it to stop, it will then update the tactic data for that general out in memory, and And that memory happens to be associated with the bits that determine whether treasure chests are open or not. If the treasure chests are open, if it sets a treasure chest to open that has a key item in the game that's required for progression, then you've soft-locked your game. It could also remove many different valuable weapons from the treasure chests that could cause you problems later. So we are going to take steps to avoid that glitch at all costs. Now, losing Zhang Fei here doesn't hurt that much because the story trigger that's coming up is going to revive him anyway. So we don't care about losing him or Guan Yu. The other ones we don't want to lose because that's just expensive from a resurrect standpoint. Alright, we gain another level, hopefully get up to 40 tactical points. There, that's very nice, very nice. Alright, so we are going to, first thing, we're going to go buy a couple of items here called smoke pots. Which is going to cloud our party so that we don't get random encounters. And this is how we're going to manipulate random encounters, or manipulate's a strong word for it, how we're going to avoid random encounters in the future. We're also going to go buy some armor for the first time in the game. We're going to buy this leather armor. Armor in this game works as just a pure absorb, and so this leather armor is about a 12% absorptive damage, so enemies just do 12% less damage, and that's simple. So, very nice to get because we have a battle upcoming, which tends to have 1 or 2 extra casualties if we don't, if we aren't a little better equipped. I will note that the decisions I'm making with regards to routing, or with regards to equipment routing, is something that there are different paths on in the community, so there's not one that's necessarily optimized over the others, but this is the one I choose. So, now alright, I think I'm back now. I don't know what happened there, OBS disconnected for a little while, but I think we're back. So, we're going to talk to this guy here who's going to tell us that General Yuan Shu has acquired the Imperial Seal and is calling himself Emperor. And so now we have to go deal with that. You know what, I'm just going to wait here until I see, I know there's a delay, but until I see in chat that you guys have me back so that I don't miss too much. I don't know what my going out may have done to the restream. So, when you hear me, chat, let me know. We're back! Alright, great. So, alright, so I'm going to continue on my way now. That's never actually happened to me before, where OBS disconnected, but my internet was still going. So anyway, we're going to continue on. And take on these guys. Now we are in the next area where all of a sudden generals have a lot more HP. Now they're still under 1,000 soldiers, so we don't have to worry about the damage multipliers, but it takes us longer to get them under 100, which can be, you know, equally problematic because we want to reduce their damage. Fortunately, most of them aren't very strong. Their weapons are better, which means they do more damage, but it's still, most of them are pretty benign. So we just kind of mow through this area. We're no longer in the every next battle is the hardest battle up to this point thing. Now that time we got a 3 tactical point gain, so it offset one of our 5s. So that's disappointing, but because we had those 5s, we have a buffer to deal with that. And now we're going to move on. Now we get the first smoke pot to handle this. Mountains have a much higher encounter rate than every other tile, and so we want to avoid encounters in that area. So that's the first of the 2 smoke pots we're going to use here. Later on, we're going to have smoke pots to prevent any encounters, but from this point, from a money routing standpoint, we could only afford to get 2 of them right now. So now we have to worry about it. And a battle with the general, you only have you have a 3 out of 8 chance of failing to run. So it's just a little better than a coin flip of being able to run. So having multiple failed runs in a row isn't that problematic. Or not it's problematic, but it's not that unusual. It's not necessarily awful RNG. Now, when you start getting 3 to 4 runs in a row failed, you start saying marathon luck. But for the most part, it's just kind of what you accept in this early game. Alright, so let's see if we can get away on try 5, is this? There we go. Now that's going to cause us problems, because the whole reason we bought that leather armor is because this next battle, these guys kind of hit hard and last a while. So we wanted to have the least amount of casualties as possible. Well, now that we've lost a whole lot of our soldiers, we may have to take some safer strats to deal with them. But first, we have to get away from this battle. Very unfortunate. Encounter rate in this game, wow, this is unfortunate. Xiling, by the way, is one of the 2 generals we're going to have to fight at the next castle, which is why we bought that armor. So he's a nasty one to run out to the wild, and we hope he's going to let us go sooner rather than later. This is a very, very unfortunate streak. Very, very unfortunate streak. We've now not Zhang Fei below 100, which is not a good thing. This is possibly the worst I have seen in a while from having this many failed runs within like a 4-step window. We're going to hope we don't get another encounter now. Alright, so now we're going to take a few little safer strats to deal with this. We still have our tactician, he's just not in the party anymore. So for our smarter generals here, we're going to actually... we're going to use a healing tactic here, Qi Shen, on Zhang Fei, so hopefully he can get a swing off. Guanping is markedly faster than Zhang Fei right now, so doing it that order is generally going to mean he gets above that 100-soldier threshold before we have to go. But he was put back below that 100-soldier threshold right now. So we're going to take one more turn to do the same thing we just did last turn. Use the fire tactic here, heal up Zhang Fei a little bit, and hopefully get Xiling at least below 100. Fortunately, tactics are not subject to the same soldier limitations as standard attacks are, so we're hopefully going to get through this without many casualties, because we only have 2 resurrects. So losing 2 generals would be pretty painful. Because there are no resurrects in this town, which is really obnoxious, because this is the town in this zone that's most likely to give you casualties. But we will go ahead and use your remaining resurrect. And we will go back to the inn and get ourselves recharged. This encounter rate right here is why we buy those smoke pots, because otherwise that can, you know, imagine that for the entirety of that process rather than just for those few steps. We were caught off guard, which is unfortunate again. These guys aren't particularly problematic, and we're going to go to the inn right after them, so this should not be a major problem for us. It's, again, important to note that I don't... Sometimes you might think, well, you know, if you can't run, just kill him. And I actually do that a little bit later, decide to kill instead of try to run and risk a fail. But, as I mentioned before, we're trying to stay under this experience threshold so that we can have an extra level worth of tactic points. So right now we cannot take any extra battles. So we just got a spear. One of the interesting mechanics in this game with weapons is that there is a... if you look at the stats when you equip a weapon, it gives you some attack power value. That attack power value is pretty much entirely meaningless. A weapon with a higher attack power will be stronger, that's true, but that's the limit to the correlation. There's a hidden stat that's the actual value. And, like for the strongest 2 weapons in the game, one of them says it's 240 attack power, one of them says it's 250, and in actuality the 250 is twice as strong as the 240. Maybe one can make an argument they're on a logarithmic scale, I don't know. But, anyway, so right now the spear is reasonably strong. It's stronger than the other weapons we got at this point. Each one up to this point is usually around a 50% increase in attack, or in damage, so each continual upgrade is nice. We're hoping to get 48 here. 48, good. Another 5. One thing I haven't mentioned yet, the castles, the set battles, they have a special defense value, which is, again, basically an absorb that the castle does so that you will do less damage to the opponents here than if you just encountered them out in the wild. It turns out that if you talk to somebody in a previous town, they tell you that this upcoming castle, Nanyang, the western bridge is under construction. And if you attack from that western bridge, you will attack this next battle as though it were a random battle, rather than from a castle. So we always want to attack this one from the left. This is the only castle in the game that has that kind of mechanic. So now we're going to take on Yuan Shu here, who's the one who, as I mentioned, is claiming Emperor now. And so we're dealing with that. And, take an extra turn of safety here. Man, we are having very unfortunate, rolls on our tactical points hitting, or our tactics hitting. But that's to be expected in the marathon, right? Right. So, I need one more turn just so I can heal him. So generals have their own tactics too. The tactics for the opposing generals are not shared across the party, and opposing generals don't have a limit to tactical points. So they can be very problematic over time. And each general's got their own set of problems. Looks like we're doing reasonably well here. If we lose one or two, if we lose anybody, it's really not a big deal because we can buy resurrects in this town. But hopefully we don't lose anybody. So now he tries to run. There's actually a lot of debate on whether running or letting him get away is faster, but for now we're going to execute him. So he tries to run away. He kept saying, "I'm the Emperor, let me go." You say, "No, no, 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 no," and then eventually you just kill him. And so now there's no more Onshu in the game. Alright, so we're gonna go take a quick end trip. And we're going to pass a few weapons around. I never used that smoke pot. Ah, fascinating. One ping. That's going to go to Lufeng. And now we're going to find a hidden item here that is incredibly overpowered. It's over double anything we've had up to this point. So we're going to give that to Zhang Fei, and he's going to absolutely start wrecking people. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to just wander right out here, move up a bit, and now we have Yuan Shao, who is Yuan Shu's older brother, and is deciding he's going to seek revenge. And Lu Bu decides to defect as well and say, "Yeah, I'm going to serve this guy instead," because Lu Bu is very much known for his inability to be loyal to anybody. So now we get attacked by these guys who, as we can see, have a lot of soldiers and are very problematic. And after they've taken a turn of attacking us, he just says, "Go away," and rather than finishing us off, you know, like a good bad guy, he's like, "I'll give you a fighting chance," which can't possibly come back to bite me later. Alright, making sure I have no more resurrects. Yes. Alright. Gonna sell just a bit of gear. Make some extra money. And then we're going to buy some resurrects to keep our party going. One of the latest additions to this route is we used to buy some headgear here, and we are not doing that anymore because it doesn't reduce enough yet to make it worth the money spent. I did not go to the inn. That is something that needs to change. I actually want Lu Feng in front. In this next battle, if Lu Feng or Miji dies, I don't care. It used to be I actively wanted them to die. That's not really part of the path anymore, but but nonetheless, I don't care if they do die, because I'm not going to use them after this battle. So this is the battle that we do not want to gain a level. If we can avoid gaining a level on this battle, we will have the opportunity to learn an extra level of tactical points. Lu Guang is the first one we're fighting that has over 1,000 soldiers, so our big goal is to get him under. As you saw, Zhang Fei just did 200 damage with his swing, whereas most of us are doing, you know, less than 100. So this is why the Trident is so overpowered and so significant to get. For safety's sake, we're going to do one more battle here before we go all out. And we should be in good shape now. Lu Guang's gone. The other two aren't nearly as much of threats. Galon would be, except for he's under 1,000 soldiers, so it's not nearly as big a deal. Shenpei doesn't hit very hard at all. So we'll just let Zheng Fei do his thing and hopefully hope that the enemies target Lu Feng here. They seem to be focusing on Guan Ping, which is unfortunate, but whatever. It's not I'm not going to be majorly upset if we lose him. We're going to have a place where we can buy Resurrects in a second here anyway. We did not gain a level, so that's a very, very good thing. We're going to get that extra level of tactical points. That was something that was always kind of a white whale in the community for a long time. Is there any possible way to avoid... Trying to figure out, is there any possible way to avoid getting level 12 before at this battle? And there never was. So the only way you could get the tactical points for this level was actually if you held on to Liu Bei all the way to level 12, because he was the only general. Whether or not you learn a general learns a tactic is based upon his intelligence, and so the only general smart enough to learn Fu Bing up to this point has been Liu Bei. So if you wanted to grind to level 12 in the starting zone, you could get the tactical points for the Fu Bing level, but that was the only known way to do it. So yeah, okay, go to the end. So the next thing we're going to do is actually find this guy. Now, I talked to this other guy here, and he says, hey, have you been to the cave? The road's blocked by debris, isn't it? And you say, yeah, sure, I've been to the cave. I know exactly what you're talking about. Where did I put it? Did I not move it? I did not. Okay. So now we're going to go to the cave, equipped with this gunpowder, and we'll deal with some stuff then. You know, before we do that, though, I'm actually going to do a quick safety save. This game has a very rare, but unfortunate habit of just crashing at certain points. We know what the cause is, but as far as we know, there's no way to manipulate it. And so when I'm going to do the things that I know tend to cause it, I'm going to save beforehand. This particular crash has only ever happened to me once, but it would be a shame for it to happen now, after we're 50 minutes into the run. We've got a little buffer in the time, because when this was submitted, the world record was 4:59, and the world record is now 3:17. Or not, sorry, it wasn't 4, it was 3:50, or 3:59 was the world record, and now it's 3:17. So we've got some routing improvements that are going to give us a little bit of buffer if we do happen to crash. But we're going to try to avoid that at all, if at all possible. Yeah, if you're looking for major historical accuracy in this one, you're gonna be a little disappointed. They take quite a few liberties in this game, but so now we pick up Shujie here, and now that we've got him, we're going to Gullwing back to Nanyang again. Gonna do a little bit of gear reswapping. Because we're going to get rid of Liu Feng, and so we don't need him to have any more gear. Leather's going to go to you. Okay, Joe-san has a small pot. Resurrect goes to you, and then your Resurrect will go to... Right. Okay, so now that we have gone through that, we're going to go back to the inn. We're going to do one more safety save because the worst place, by far, for these crashes to occur is in billeting, which we haven't seen yet. But billeting is the billeting is a place where you can drop off party members so you can bring new ones in. So we're going to remove Lu Feng. And we're going to remove Niji. And now we're stuck. We've got this 5-person party. We want the 5-person party because we want to have Shujie in our party for this next battle. Now, as I said, we went on a nice little streak of, hey, this battle isn't so bad, or after all these, this is the worst battle yet, this is the worst battle yet, and then finally, oh, these battles aren't so bad. Well, now we're about to get to, again, the hardest battle in the game so far. Now, ideally, I'm taking fights here and gaining a level at this next battle. However, because this is the nature of how the game tends to work, I get a perfect hero run without a single encounter on the way, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of grinding, which is not what I wanted to do, but sometimes it happens. So we're going to try to do our best to get both these guys under 1,000. Because again, that will drop their multiplier from 16 down to 9, so almost halving it. I think we're probably okay here because Gongji does not have a lot of strength, so he's probably okay even at about 4 digits for a little bit. Jin Chuan is who we want to get out right now, who we're doing a very bad job of targeting. Alright, we're gonna pull back for a minute. Hopefully prevent deaths. We give Chituma to Shujie here. He is actually so fast, he's the fastest general we've had in our party up to this point. He's so fast that using Chituma maxes his agility. Later on in the game, a max agility isn't really a guarantee of going first, because other generals have such high agility, it still is a little bit of a race. But at the early game, it almost guarantees it, because the other generals don't have nearly as strong of a defense, or an agility value. So this is actually our Fu Bing level. Ideally, we would be gaining the next level right here. So we're going to go find yet another overpowered hidden weapon here, called the bow. The bow is slightly weaker than the trident, but the bow attacks twice a turn, so it ultimately does more damage than the trident. We did get these weapons called smoke pots. Not smoke pots, power pills. And they are guaranteed critical hits, and a critical hit is slightly more than double the best normal hit you can get. And the nice thing about using the item for the critical hit is it's also a guaranteed hit. The amount it's going to do is static, based upon your attack power, your soldiers, the defense power, etc. There's no random range it's going to do. So we know exactly what it's going to do, and we can prepare for that accordingly. We're going to have to continue to grind until we hit the next level. It shouldn't be too long. Usually it's about 300 experience. So I don't love having to grind here, but getting the Fu Bing level makes it kind of worthwhile. The forest tiles are a 1 in 16 encounter rate. The path and plains tiles are a 1 in 32 encounter rate, which is why I'm sitting here and hugging the forest tiles. Should be one more battle. I think that should do it just fine. With an N-trip in my future, these guys aren't particularly scary by themselves in the wild. This will most certainly do it. Because we need to learn this Tongxian tactic. Tongxian is the next level healing tactic, and at where we are soldier-wise, it will completely restore HP. So we're actually going to use that remaining smoke pot that we accidentally have still, and use it to get all the way here to Changsha, which again is the hardest battle up to this point in the game. He even says the castle's going to be difficult to conquer. As long as we're not caught off guard, we're pretty much in good shape. So we're going to use our knowledge of the soldier thresholds, and we're going to split our attacks so that we, in turn 1, unless we get too much focus on Guan Yu and Zheng Fei, we will be able to drop both Wei Yan and Huang Zhang below 1,000 soldiers, which of course, like I said, halves the damage they're going to do. And then we're going to use, from that, we are going to focus our attack directly on Huang Zhang and try to get rid of him. He has an area of effect fire tactic, but unfortunately, this is something that can happen. They did enough damage to him to knock him below the threshold where he's going to be able to do any real damage. So we're going to have a little bit more trouble dealing with stuff right now. So we're going to we're still going to use the power pill with him on Wei Yan. We're going to use the power pill with him on Huang Zhang, and we're going to heal Guan Yu. And this is why having Shujia going first is so important, is because he can get that heal off every time before anybody else does anything. So we can keep him above unfortunately, we got him. They're targeting him. Guan Yu, it's almost a meme in the community, just how much everybody has it in for Guan Yu. Doesn't matter where you put him, they're just going to, take everything out on him anyway. So, and again, agility it's still random, so you're not always going to go first, but usually you're in good shape there. In general, they're supposed to target the general that's highest up on the highest up in your party more frequently. So this is not going great as far as these battles go, but we're perfectly safe. It's just much slower than usually is. We're getting a lot of repelled attacks. Obviously, the damage that's been happening to Guan Yu, which is severely hampered. Ordinarily, if everything goes according to plan, you get rid of Huang Zhang and Wei Yan in turn 2 and 3, and then you can pretty much all out finish the battle off. As we've seen, that's not how this one's gone. But from here, we should be okay as long as, well, of course, we're going to use Guan Yu as target practice. Alright, good. We've avoided it this time. So. Now, this is actually a point in the game where you can go one of two ways, and both of them have big roadblock battles in them. But, we like this one because we get to have Wei Yan and Huang Zhang join us. Now, Wei Yan has over 1,000 soldiers. Whoops. Has over 1,000 soldiers, and is therefore very strong. Does a lot of damage. Both Wei Yan and Huang Zhang are strong. Huang Zhang is a tiger, and in this game, tigers are basically the generals that gain soldiers at each battle. You'll notice Zhang Fei and Guan Yu continue to gain soldiers each level. Well, the same thing happens with the same thing happens with Huangjong, which actually means that he lost a lot of soldiers from what we just saw him have, but he'll end up making them up later. Alright, we're going to do a little bit of gear swapping here, because we're going to be sending Guanping out of the active party. He'll still be sticking around with us for a little while longer. But we just picked up a sword at this hidden well. Now, a sword is extremely strong versus anything else we've seen so far, even compared to the trident that we got. The sword is incredibly overpowered. And that's the reason we do this direction first, is because we get the strong general in Wei Yan that can just absolutely mow through guys. And then we also... Oops, I forgot to reorder my parties, so now... yeah. And now we also have stronger weapons. And so, as we get up to this point, we just had this hardest battle yet so far, like we kept having. And now, the game rewards us by allowing us to just absolutely destroy everything in our path for a little while. So we come to this place, Guiyang, and everybody's blocking our path to go in anywhere, is all excited about the Han Dynasty, and we come in here to whoever's in this castle, Zhao Fan, and he's like, let me show you your sleeping quarters. Well, if you do that, his party is going to completely beat you up, and then you fight this battle. If you ignore it, he's going to make you fight this battle anyway, so you'd prefer to have all your soldiers in place. You're going to watch some of the things the sword does as you see these meters just dropping. I should mention that, you may have noticed it, but the color of our health bars went from pink to yellow once we got Zhosang. And that's going to be what happens as things go on, because as soldiers go up, having completely full bars is, doesn't make a lot of sense, because otherwise those bars would almost never go down until you're dead. So once you go up to hit certain thresholds, the amount of soldiers each pixel in the bar counts for is decreased, and the color changes. So now we have taken care of Guiyang here, and we are going to buy 6 smoke pots. Four, 5, 6. All right. And then we are going to move on our merry little way. We're going to take a battle or two, hopefully, before we get there. But naturally, now that we want to take the battle, it doesn't happen. So we would ordinarily use a smoke pot right here to avoid battles the second part, but we need another random encounter or two. But regardless, we'll deal with that later. Meanwhile, we've just got to go through these next battles, and so we are going to utterly obliterate our opposition here. The nice thing about Wei Yan is he also has agility that with Chitu Ma he is guaranteed to go first. So not only is he strong, but he also will do a whole lot of damage quickly. So now we're going to go to this little hidden area back here. And I've talked to this guy, he just says, check the area around me. And so if you do, you will find a sword. So now we have 3 swords in our party, a bow and a trident, and that is a very strong combination of weapons. As well, our tigers have now gained some extra soldiers. Whoops. Wrong person. our tigers have gained more soldiers, and so this next section of the game, we aren't even going to bother stopping at an inn after this initial one. We're also going to learn a very nice tactic called Yen Xian, and it will, it's an AoE heal that recovers like 1,000 soldiers each. So it's very, very strong for this point in the game when 1,000 soldiers covers pretty much everybody. Now I'm actually still not going to use the smoke pot that was intended for this spot because I do need to take a couple of random encounters for experience purposes. Now I didn't mention this before, but there's this lady right here who's saying, "Oh, Shujin, my love, I'm blocking the bridge," or where are you? And she won't get out of your way until you have Shujin in your party. Well, we have Shujin in the party, and you can't go past the castle. It's not just this part of the town you will miss. You can't go past the castle without without moving her out of the way. Who's got the other resurrect I need to pass around? Okay, you do. So we have to move her out of the way, and since we moved across the bridge, we decided to take a stop at this weapon shop and pick up some really impressive headgear. That's a massive, that's about 20% damage absorb, and will help us dramatically through the next section of the game. So now this is the kind of roadblock battle of the other side that you'd have to really grind for if you decided to go this way. But as we see, that's not really something you have to worry about. And we still haven't gotten a random encounter yet, which is... this may be a personal record for me. Oh, I don't want to use this map yet. Here we go. I don't think that's going to be enough to do it. The goal here is that I'm going to learn Zero when I finish off the last battle in this area. Which is, Zero is a very, very nice tactic. It will have the damage that enemies do to you. You just saw here, we captured a general named Lu Guang. What should we do with him? If you try to recruit him, he might join your party. He might ask for money to join your party. Whatever. And so if you wanted to have him, you could do that. But again, in this one, we don't do that because we can't really rely on anything. So I think that's enough that I'm going to take my risk of not taking any more battles. So we're going to start using these smoke pots. So we bought that silver key in the town of Nanyang when we came back. And the guy we got the silver key from, we unlocked the door in that fortress where we fought Shuzhou, and we got this letter saying, "Hey, tell my brother I'm safe." And so we show this letter to Jia Yun here, who's your brother, saying, "Hey, he's safe." And he's like, "Oh, great, I'm going to make them wish that, regret the day they were born, yada yada. I want it effect." So now Jia Yun has joined our party and is sitting in building waiting for us to pick him up. He is going to be the first person that's in this party that will be with us for the remainder of the game. Spoiler alert. Oh, there's a random encounter I wasn't expecting. Jotsong dies here, it's really not the end of the world. It's a little obnoxious, but not anything I'm going to concern myself with too much. Oh, Guan Ping's here, I forget about that. Alright, anyway. So we're going to use Fu Bing here. Now, Fu Bing is an interesting tactic where you have hidden soldiers attack. Okay. And so you get an extra attack in on your opponents. It only lasts for a short period of time. I don't actually know what the trigger is to make it go away. But, again, Guan Ping's another one. I don't care if he I really don't care if he dies. Oh, that was a useless use of tactics there. But in general, if you get Lu Bu down below 1,000, the rest of this should be pretty easily all out of. Now that usually includes having you know what, we're gonna take one more turn like this. Let you use that. That usually includes having Jotsong here, but still, it's a pretty simple fight. If you don't execute Yuan Shu, he is going to end up in this fight as well. So, but at this point, you can usually mow through them with only one turn of prep, in which case you don't actually lose that much time with him being in the battle. So now we've killed Yuan Shao. Shuja learns Jiro, which is exactly what we wanted to happen there. And now we're going to get one more bow. We're going to give it to Hong Zhang. And we are going to sell a little bit of our extra stuff, and then we are going to buy some other items to help continue the next part of our game a little faster. If we have someone with donations, this would be a great time to read them. Alright, so what we're going to end up doing is buying a whole lot of gold wings, because we are about to do a really exciting fetch quest. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's very important when doing the run to keep a good count of the inventory space that people have, because otherwise you get this person can't carry anymore message, and that takes time. So, most times in the game, I have a good count of what each general has in his inventory, except for later on in the game when some stuff can go awry to totally screw up inventory, in which case I have to do a little more careful management. gonna buy some power pills for these guys. 2, 3, 4. Menuing is, again, these shops are some of the most expensive parts of the speedrun in terms of trying, you know, we want to minimize the amount of times we have to stop at a shop because the menuing here is absolutely brutal in terms of time. Alright, so now we've done that. Now we're going to do a... Yeah, I want to go to the end. Now we're going to do a strat that was recently discovered by ACMLM when doing his when doing the work on the tasks. And it turns out, so we did this once, but you can invite Liu Bei to different castles, and what castle he's willing to go to is based upon part where you are in the story and whatever. Well, it turns out that even if you invite him somewhere he's not going to do, if it tells you where he's going to go, it automatically invites him there. So we needed to get him into Guiyang. So even though we're not in Guiyang, we're in Jizhou, we can invite him, and that will send him to Guiyang, to which point we will be there, which is exactly what we needed. We talked to Liu Bei. He says Shuja's mother is ill, so Shuja has to go to take care of her. So we're going to now, if we go out there, he's going to say, hey, there's this guy named Zhuge Liang who you should really take on as your strategist. And so we're going to go try to find this guy. But apparently he's a very, very busy man. So we have all these smoke pots for this trick, because we get to do this a bunch of times. We talk to his brother. He says he's not home. He may be in the house of Ping in Lusong Village. Now, if you go... Lusong is the village you started with, and if you go into the house of go near the house of Ping, there's a guy there that says, oh, he's never home, and you go in the house, it's empty. So this is the one time the guy is actually home. Before we go on, we're going to go pick up this guy named Ma Liang. He's going to be a special little guy for us. We're going to make good use of him later on in the game, but we don't want him around much at this point in the game, because he learns tactics, and he's not strong. Deal with that in a second. So I talked to Ping. He says, hey, you're looking for Zhuge Liang? He was here, but he's not anymore. So back off we go to see him again. Yes, you may have noticed this chat mentioning that once we lose Shuja, the overworld music changes for the rest of the game. So we're going to head back now to Zhuge Liang's house and talk to his brother. And his brother's going to say, hey, my brother's here, but he went out already. If he comes back, I'll call on you at Nanyang Castle. So we're going to use yet another Gull Wing to go back to Nanyang Castle. And we are going to do a few things here. We are going to invite Liu Bei. We are going to safety save, because we are going to make a trip to billeting again. And we are going to swap out Jotsong for Jia Yun. Now what's nice is if two people are in the same spot in the party, so I just dropped Jotsong, Jia Yun replaced him in that spot, so Jia Yun's gear is already, or is identical to what Jotsong had now. So I don't have to re-equip him or anything like that. And then I'm going to say goodbye to Guanping for the rest of the game. And so now I'm going to go up. I'm going to go talk to Liu Bei here. And he says, hey, his brother came here and said he returned, so you should go to his home. So off we go to start this whole trek yet again. Alright, so here we come, and now Zhuge Liang's here. Talk to him, he's sleeping. Do you wake him up? If you say yes, he yells at you, is my house on fire? No, then leave me alone. If you say no and then press a button, he's like, oh, his brother says, hey, I'll let you know when he's awake. If you press no and then just wait, he'll eventually wake up and say, okay, you know what, I can't refuse you any longer, I'm going to join you, but first, I'm going to go to Guiyang. So now we get to use yet another Gull Wing and head to Guiyang. And so now we're going to come up here, talk to Zhuge Liang, and he's going to tell you that Liu Bei's relative Lu Jing in the land of Shu is under attack by the Hanzhong army, and you need to do something about that. So we got Zhuge Liang. Now Zhuge Liang is the best strategist in the game. He gets the best tactics in the game, for the most part, and he's going to be our tactician for most of the rest of the game. So now the next thing we need to do is we need to refill our smoke pots. I believe you have... Whoops. I've lost count now. But he's going to learn most of the best tactics in the game and will help you out. The problem is there are a couple tactics that, oddly enough, he's too smart to learn. In this game, there are... Each tactic slot has 5 different tactics that can be learned in it. And generally speaking, the next tactic in that slot will replace the previous one. However, there is a priority level, and there are some tactics that will not be replaced by others in their lower priority level. And it turns out that in the next level, we're going to gain a tactic called Beiji. And that has the highest priority in that slot, but only generals with over 240 intelligence are able to learn Beiji. And so, because of that, the next 2 tactics at that slot are not learnable by... No, I want to use yours. Are not learnable by the smartest generals. Which is why we keep a slightly less smart general around, because I want him to learn tactics at those levels for the tactical points, and for other reasons too. So we're going to head back this way, and we're going to encounter a familiar face. So I've talked about the 7th slot glitch briefly, and we're trying to get Ma Liang killed here, because we do not want him in our active party, but we want to keep him in our party so that he's available to learn tactics. So we're going to try to get him killed off. So we're going to put him in the top slot here with absolutely no gear, and hopefully he gets targeted once or twice and it knocks him out. We have somebody who will hopefully do a very good job of that. Hey! Here's our friend Lu Bu. With a whole lot more soldiers, and actually a whole lot less intelligence. So if we're lucky, Lu Bu will target Ma Liang here. But unfortunately, people who you want to die have a really nasty habit of staying alive. So we used the Zero, which halves the damage we take, which is a big deal against someone like Lu Bu, who's super strong and now has a sword, which is, you know, as we mentioned before, a very good weapon, and a lot of soldiers. We would really have loved it if he would have targeted Ma Liang here, but he did not. So, at least not in any meaningful way. And now his life comes to an end. We finally have taken care of Lu Bu for the last time. We will not see him again in this game. And here we're going to learn that Beiji tactic I was just referring to. Alright, well we're going to go back to an inn real fast. Now, the reason I put the effort into grinding for Lu Bu there is that he will always be the first general battle you will fight in Shu. And because of that, if at some point your smoke pots run out, or you're otherwise unprepared for, if you get a random encounter in a bad time, then that can be a major problem because it's going to cost resources to get through that battle. So, killing him early prevents that from happening. And there will be a later time where we will have to take Shu random encounters intentionally. And again, not having him around helps that as well. So now we're in Shu, and generals have a lot of soldiers. They have a much stronger weapon, and can cause us a lot of problems. So now that this could be very, very nice for us. If they target Ma Liang again, he's gone. There we go. That's exactly what we wanted. Each successive battle Ma Liang's in costs time, because it slows down the attack, because he does no damage when he attacks. So losing him as quickly as possible is ideal. Losing him after using all his smoke pots is also ideal, because a dead character can't use items. So we actually have to, in order to use any of his items, we actually have to pull them away from him to use them. So that's why we want to get rid of the smoke pots, because otherwise those take a lot of time to use. So now we're going to continue on our merry little way. Yeah, killing off Ma Liang is always a major point in the speed run. So we're very happy to, as ACML is saying, anybody not named Guan Yu is hard to kill off. It is remarkable how we've minimized the number of people over time that we need to kill off. We used to have others we wanted to kill off too, and of course none of them ever actually died, except for Guan Yu, who always dies. You'll notice we just always use Zero as the first thing we do in these battles. Because these guys hit hard, even the ones who aren't that particularly strong. We're actually going to take another turn to do a heal of the party. The next battle is one of the sneaky difficult battles, because on its surface it's really not that hard, and generally speaking it's not bad, but it has a way to go bad pretty quickly. Because as I mentioned, we're using Zero at every opportunity, and the reason for that is because the guys in this area hit very, very hard. Well, it happens to be, in the next battle, we have one guy, Fa Zheng, who has a tactic called Jizhi. That tactic will nullify any status tactics that our party has, which means that that it will nullify the Zero, which then means the other guys can suddenly start doing 700-800 damage per hit, which isn't a horrible thing in general if you're prepared for it, but when you go all out, you can't tell if he used it or not until you start seeing massive casualties on your side. So, we're going to use that and then he's going to do that. We're going to use a power pill on him. We're going to use, actually I want to do it this way. You're going to use Beiji on you, use a power pill on you, you're going to heal, and you're going to use a power pill. Now that, if you notice, Zheng Fei has over 1,000 soldiers now, so he can start really doing some damage. He's the second strongest character in the game, only behind Lu Bu, and with over 1,000 soldiers, he can really, really do some damage. And then if we use Beiji, which I mentioned doubles your attack power, we get that off before he goes, then he can do a lot of damage like that. So our goal was to get Fa Zheng down as low as possible in hopes that one more hit's going to kill him before he gets a Jitsa off. Alright, well we lost Huangzhang, but that's really not a big deal. Doesn't seem like he got the Jitsa off, so we're good there. Alright, we'll just use a quick resurrect. Don't think I'm even going to bother buying another one right now. I'm going to do a safety save here, and the reason for that, even though there's not a castle here, so we would have to make our trek all the way back here, the next town has our next to last building trip of the game, and so, and it does not have a place to save. So we're just going to go ahead and just be safe right there. So now we come into this castle, and we find out Liu Jing here has been imprisoned and is now stuck locked in the castle. So we break that door down to free him up. That door was a lot of cause of consternation in my childhood because you have to mash the door. You cannot just hold up against it. And so I would sit there and hold up against it for 15 minutes trying to break it and fail horribly. But if you just mash up a few times, it breaks instantly. So that was a very tough part of playing this game when I was a kid, is that stupid wall. Alright, here, we're just going to all out. We're not even going to worry about anything, because these guys are not particularly problematic. We might pull back right at the very end to heal ourselves. Do that, and then just attack everybody else. Alright, they're gone. This is the first tactic that we needed to learn. I think it's going to be... No, it'll be the next battle. Which of these two you go at is based upon, you know, randomness based upon the enemies you've defeated up to that point, so... Alright, you're going to use Zero. You are going to use Beiji on you. You are going to use a power pill. Now, Pangda here is the first general in the game with one of the worst or most dangerous tactics in the game, which is called Jimian. Jimian completely nullifies physical attacks. So, and that's why we have all these power pills here, because we need to get him down as quickly as possible, because there's literally nothing we can do if Jimian lands, just wait for it to wear off. And it only has a 3 out of 8 chance of wearing off at the end of any given turn. So now he used Lijian, which is also problematic. Has a 3/8 chance of wearing off. Lijian gets your own party to attack your party members. So hopefully Guan Yu avoids it, otherwise Guan Yu's going to hurt our party pretty badly when he attacks. See, he just did 700 damage to himself there. So we're going to take one more turn to try to keep ourselves alive against Guan Yu, who's really the most dangerous of everybody on this field right now. This is the next kind of battle in the game that, well, and then Guan Yu completely wipes out Wei Yan. Good times. We're gonna continue to just wait this out. We're losing Wei Yan after this battle anyway, so it's really not a major deal if he gets wiped out. Avoiding Li Jian's effect is important. Now that Pang Jie is dead, there's no problem, so the rest of this is trivial. So now, Ma Chao here is going to say, hey, I would love to fight your side if you'll have me. Alright, great. So Ma Chao and Ma Dai have now joined my team. And that's good because they are very good generals. So Ma Liang learns Li Jian here. That's the first of the tactics that Zhuge Liang is too smart to learn. So we want Ma Liang here for that purpose, but of course, as I mentioned, we don't want him in the party, so that's why we keep him killed off. So we can't put him in 7th slot, and he doesn't stay in the active party. Alright, you're gonna be... No. You're gonna go to you. Alright, so now we're gonna go in, and we're gonna drop off Wei Yan. And we're gonna pick up Ma Chao. Yan. And we're gonna pick up Ma Chao. Oops. And then we're going to drop off Huang Zhang. And we're going to pick up Ma Dai. And Ma Dai, similar to the Wei Yan, similar to the Wei Yan and Huang Zhang situation, Ma Dai has the 3,100 soldiers we saw before, which of course is a very, very nice total to have at this point in the game. Ma Chao, on the other hand, is a tiger, so his soldiers have dropped down dramatically from what we just saw him at, but they will grow. And he will be part of our final party. So right now we have 4 of our final party members. In Ma Chao, Zhao Yun, Ma Liang, and Zhuge Liang. So now we picked up this iron ore. That will be important to us shortly. And then just for a shortcut, we're going to go wing back to Lua here, and then head back through the cave a different direction. We're going to end on the other side here, and we're heading towards the capital of Chengdu. Now, in Lua, if you talk to various people, they tell you that Liu Jing now, who you've come to help, has instead decided to join the Hanzhong army. So now, you're considering him a traitor, and you've got to go deal with that. We'll see our colors here on our bars turn to yellow, because of Ma Dai having so many soldiers. I'm gonna go ahead and heal here just to be safe. Alright, so now we're going to equip this Battle Axe. Battle Axe is one of the best upgrades in the game. It's almost twice as strong as the sword. Every other upgrade from this point on, with the exception of the very last weapon, is a much more incremental increase in damage. So we're going to get all of our party Battle Axes soon. But for now, we're going to settle with our strongest general and our general who has all the soldiers. Alright, oops. Use you. That's why I'm attacking in one turn. This isn't a particularly problematic battle, except for they hit hard, and so we prefer not to take all the casualties. They could very easily wipe one of your characters in a turn or two. I see the question in chat about what the use of rations is. Rations are, every time you take a step, your party will use up a certain amount of food. If you exhaust your food, then you will start losing soldiers at every step. We do not want that to happen, but every time you fight a set battle, you gain rations, and turns out you gain a lot more than you need. And so we will have no issue with food the entire run. Do a quick heal before the next battle, which is really the next one's really anticlimactic, because it's got a bunch of generals in it, but they're all really bad. And so it's just a minor nuisance, which feels like it needs to be more epic than that, but... So they look imposing, but they're really not. Zero. So all we're doing is using Beiji to double everybody's attack power, use Jiro to halve the damage that's being done, and then after that we are safe to just charge. Because they're just not going to do enough to bother us. Alright, so now Shu was settled by Liu Bei's army. So we're going to walk into Chengdu. Gonna take a quick in trip. Oops, wrong place. Quick in trip. And then we are going to... This is where I talked about having a dead character can hurt. We are going to... going back to Lua again, and you used all yours, right? Yeah. Okay. We are going to go backwards a little bit. Alright, so now we talk to this guy. He's a swordsmith, so that iron ore we found in the cave, we need to go talk to him and give to him. And now we come back in, take a step outside, and in that amount of time, apparently a bunch of brigands came in and were able to steal the 5 beautiful swords that he made out of the ore. So now we are going back to Chengdu. And now we're going to do a bit of shopping. Alright, don't need anything for you. You lose your sword. Get rid of your... So we're gonna upgrade our armor a decent amount now. And we're getting rid of all of our swords and replacing them with battle axes because, as I mentioned, that battle axes are a whole lot stronger. Jayun's gonna get rid of his leather. He's gonna get rid of his bow. That's a major upgrade. And then last, he's going to get rid of his leather, and he's going to get rid of the sword he's no longer using anyway. And by a resurrect, I'm going to give it to Guan Yu. And then I'm going to buy 8 gold wings that I'm going to stick in Ma Liang's inventory. Maybe I'll change the route around enough I can't remember exactly what numbers I want to have here. We'll throw 3 golems with Zhuge Liang. Whoops. We're gonna finish filling out Zhuge Liang and Ma Liang's inventory with spoke pots. Battle axe for Ma Chao. Battle axe for Xiao Yun. And then chain in for everybody. So now we're going to pass this battle axe over to Guan Yu, because we've got to get a new weapon for him. We're also going to pass a little bit of stuff around. I'm going to pass Chi Tu Ma here to Guan Yu. I'm going to pass Guan Yu's power pills to Zhang Fei. I'm going to equip the gear for Jia Yun. Equip the gear for Ma Chao. Okay. And then we're going to invite Liu Bei here. Since we're here, even though there's not any real risks, we're going to go ahead and do a safety save just because I'm here. And then we're going to find this random item lying around right here, one of the items that there's no reason in the world you would have actually looked there when you were, when you're playing. There's no indication to search that spot. So now we're going to talk to Liu Bei, and Liu Bei says, hey, I'm now ruling Jingzhou and Shu, Cao Cao is ruling in Wei, Sun Ce and Wu, this is 3 kingdoms, we're all living in peace, great. So now to keep the stability in Jingzhou, I need to have you, Guan Yu, and you, Zhang Fei, help guard that. So now Zhang Fei and Guan Yu have left our party, which always made me sad as a kid because they were my favorite characters in the party. Now we find out that Cao Cao died, and Sun Ce was assassinated. Which, uh-oh, that's not good. And now all of a sudden Wu's army starts attacking. So now we've got to go help Guan Yu and Zhang Fei deal with that particular problem. So we're going to Guilwing, back to Changsha. And we're going to come visit Guan Yu over here. Well, we're not really visiting Guan Yu, per se. we're going to go talk and get his son Guanxing here. And the reason I did not equip these characters beforehand is that I knew, or that they would be unequipped when I picked them up. When the person gets exchanged for their child, for whatever reason, the gear, they unequip the gear versus all the other times you exchange generals and they keep all the gear. So now we're going to come to Guiyang, where Zheng Fei is, and we're going to get his son Zhang Bao. Similarly, we're going to equip him. Why do you have 2 smoke pots? That's weird. Anyway. Now, let's not forget to reorder my party. Alright. So now, we are at a point where Guanxing has maxed out agility. Actually, Guanxing, Ma Chao, and Zhang Bao all have maxed out agility. However, Guanxing is the weakest of the bunch, and so we're going to use him with Chi Tu Ma to handle doing status things like Zero, the same way we were doing it with Wei Yan before. And he will be our status guy for the next little while. So now we come to this town of Lingling that we had already defeated when we were settling Jingzhou, and it's now been taken over again by generals from Wu. So we're going to just buff our guys up and decrease their ability to attack, and then we are just going to all out. This battle is not particularly problematic. Alright, and now we're going to do a quick end trip. And we're going to going back to Changsha and head the other direction, because Wuling has also been overtaken by these Wu generals. This is one of these situations where I'm just killing these these forces here because the time loss is worth not taking the risk of failing to run. I don't actually want to keep a smoke pot active for too long because I'm going to want a random encounter before too long. The smoke pot will run it right there, which is exactly where I want. And the strategy here is going to be the exact same strategy as we did in the last battle, which is buff my party up, and then all out. Yeah, Dara is a fire tactic. It's we might use it once in this run, and generally speaking, we have made full use of our fire and water tactics. There's one particular spot in which case there might be a reason to use Daja, but and now we lose Yinxian for Wanfu, and that's a sad day for everybody. Wanfu is basically a heal-all tactic. will fully restore HP, which is nice. But your party tends to have... Oh, shoot. I just warped to the wrong place. Your party tends to have a habit of losing generals, or losing soldiers all across the place instead. And so losing one that heals just one general has its limited uses. And it's very expensive, using 10 tactical points to cast. And so it's sad to have. On the other side, when your opposing generals have it, it's a nightmare, because, as you mentioned, the generals all have their own tactics, so they can use them ad nauseum and not have to... they can use them ad nauseum, and you don't have to... yeah, they can refill themselves at any point. And they can each do their own thing, so... it can be hard to deal with them. So we have to use some other tactics to deal with generals with Wanfu. So what happens here is we are convincing Liu Bei, because Wu and Wei have now destabilized the area, to declare himself emperor and deal with these other two regions instead. So Liu Bei declares his right as Emperor of China and tells us we need to send an army against Wu and Wei at once. So we are going to do exactly that. Whoops. But before we do that, we are going to do a slight shopping trip. We're going to buy power pills for all of our offensive generals. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there'll be 3 more for Zhang Bao, and then we're going to buy some smoke pots to fill up Zhuge Liang and Ma Liang's inventories. I don't have a good count for that, so we're just going to go until he tells us we can't. Sadly, Xiahou Dun has a very, very limited part in this game for what an absolutely unique character he was. Alright, now I mentioned a while back about the cave glitch, where the enemy set you fight in caves is based on the last place you took an encounter. Well, it so happens the last place I took an encounter was Shu, so even though this cave is in Wu, I'm getting Shu enemies, and that's nice because at this point, with better gear, I can just absolutely obliterate them without any real risk. And so I can do a little bit of grinding while I'm traveling through this particular cave. As long as I don't pass 39,800 experience, I am in good shape, so I'm trying to get as close to that as possible without going over. We're going to come down here and we're going to get saltpeter, and that's going to have uses for us in a short period of time. Oops. Casually, if you can get Zhang Guan on your party, it's a very good thing. He's a very good general for Shu level, but he's not really worth it for us. Downside to grinding the Shu generals is that I've defeated them all, so every battle I fight has that menuing that we captured a general, what do we want to do with him thing that comes afterwards. So it's a little bit slower, but for the risk of not having a battle, if we tried with Wu generals, we'd get more experience per battle, but half of the battle we'd have to run from because we're not strong enough to deal with them right now. So I'd much rather prefer to take the guaranteed battles that I can easily have, because one failed run costs as much time as all of these we captured a generals together. Yan Yan's another one who's a really good one to pick up if you have the opportunity to casually. So we're getting close-ish to our limit where we don't want to take any more, battles. We said 39,800 is what we're looking for, and we're at 38,900. So one more battle is probably all we can afford to risk. I think this will do it. So now we're going to smoke pop. And get out of this area, and we're going to come down here to Jianan Castle. Oh. See, this is the kind of thing you aren't equipped to handle from the Wu from the Wu enemies. Alright, so we're going to do the same stuff as before, where we're going to buff our characters. Now, I mentioned a while back that Pangda had a tactic called Jimian, which would completely nullify physical attacks. Now, most battles have a general with that tactic, and your goal is to get rid of that or otherwise nullify it as rapidly as you possibly can. Because if they use it, and you're using power pills or something, you still use the power pill up and you do no damage. And that is not something you want to see. Fortunately, he used an offensive tactic, and so we should be good to go here. Finish him off, and then once he's gone, the rest of this is a cakewalk. So we got that saltpeter in the cave. Well, there's a guy here. If you notice, there's a river right below this town, so there's really nothing we can do to go south from here. Well, there's a guy here who says, hey, if you mix saltpeter, a branch which has lived for over 1,000 years, and my sulfur, I can blow up part of the mountain and clog the canal. Well, it so happens there's a super old branch underneath that tree. And behind that tree, there's a scimitar, because that seems to be a very common thing for people to just leave, swords lying around on the ground. Figure somebody would get hurt eventually, but, you know, that's what they did. So, he said all that stuff. So we got the saltpeter, we got the old wood, he has the sulfur, and so he's going to go blow the canal up. now we come to what is known as the run killer. This gave you nightmares as casually, and this gives you nightmares as a speedrunner. Zhou Yu is bad, bad, bad. He has a tactic that nobody else in Wu has, and he's very smart, very fast, and the reason we don't want to gain up a level is because we're going to lose Zero at the next level, and we need to have that have defense, because he has an AoE water tactic that he can use, which can do, you know, up to like 2,000 per enemy. As does Kanze here, who is currently using it. So when the two of them combine, if they surprise attack you and you can't get a Zero off, then literally they can wipe your party without you having anything you can do about it. It's very obnoxious. Plus he's super fast, so he usually gets to go first. We've got Fortunate here. You're using this Yishen, which is basically a kind of a paralysis move, where your party member cannot... your party member is completely worthless until... See, now I have to use these power pills with everybody, even though he only has one thing, because he has Wan Fu, which can completely recover his soldiers. Now, fortunately, the AI in this game occasionally, when they decide to use Wan Fu, which they will do more frequently at lower health amounts, will randomly decide to target a different party member instead of the ones themselves, which is who they should be targeting. So we got lucky there, and he used it on Gu Yong. Otherwise, we would have had to use those power pills on him there, and gone yet another round with him. We did see the worst he had to offer, but that was pretty nasty. And now we learned Jimian. And we're going to find yet another hidden scimitar. Alright, and now we are going to head back to Jianan. I don't want to risk you. We're going to go to the inn, and we are going to completely load our party with smoke pots. Because we're going to need a lot of them. So we're probably good from a power pill perspective with whatever we've got left lying around. Oh, actually, I would like to move power pills around here, because Guanxing hardly ever gets to use them, thanks to using all the status tactics. And then I also need to sell the 2 battle axes that I just replaced with scimitars. So I have as many free spots as possible. Now we're going to fill everybody with smoke pots. Routing in this game has been a whole lot of work to reduce menus as much as possible, because as you see, and I mentioned earlier, these are painful to deal with at times. So the fewer trips you have to make, the fewer things you can knock out in one trip, is very nice. I think we have about 4 more trips, 4 more major shopping trips in the game. Alright, we're good to go. Now, we're not actually using those smoke pots. We are actually going to grind on our way, because we need to get to level 27 in a few battles. Now, Lu Xun is somebody who I cannot take on. Probably ever. He's a really nasty general. In fact, he's such a nasty general that the TAS actually has him in its final party. This guy's also, he's only an offensive general, but as far as they, or I mean a melee general, but as far as they go, he can still wreck you even once you drop him below 10k. So we don't want to fight him. Rebel forces is really what we want to see right now. And so now, you're going to get to this, for whatever reason, I'm not sure, I don't believe this is ever referenced anywhere, but we are now fighting the brother of Zhuge Liang, the one who was telling us, hey, my brother's here, my brother's there, my brother's whatever. He got a pallet shift, and somehow has become one of Wu's generals. And so now we're currently fighting against Zhuge Liang's brother, but I don't exactly know why. Zhuge Liang has has Jimian, which can be really nasty. He has Hong Shui, which is that area of effect tactic I was talking, water tactic that we had elsewhere, but we no longer have Zhiro to mitigate its attack power. He does not have Wanfu, which is nice, but good. But this right here can be majorly problematic if it lands. Fortunately, we got him down. Now everybody else is entirely offensive. They don't have any tactics. So, as long as we keep a Jimian on, they can't do anything to us. Give myself a chance to recover. They will hit hard if the Jimian runs off. But Jimian has a 3 out of 8 chance of running off at the end of each turn, so this running off at the end of each turn here is very unfortunate. Fortunately, we have the tactical points to manage it. If we have wear-off rates like that later in the game, we're going to be having to make some very long detours to handle it. So we will mention that we have not had great tactical point rolls in recent levels, so we're going to be hurting a little bit. Not too awful, but enough to be obnoxious. So we just found a crossbow. We also found that random splint mail lying around somewhere. I'm going to sell your battle axe. I'm going to buy an extra resurrect with you because I need an extra one for what's coming up. Alright. And now, I go to the inn. Nope. Alright, so now we're going to take a risk here. and we're going to wander off. See, Joe, you do not want to fight him. We're going to go ahead and try to do our grind in the cave. In the worst case scenario, let's see what happens if we try to take him out. Oh, it leaves you on. Nice. In the worst case scenario, we'll have to gull wing back, heal ourselves up, and come back through. It's not horribly awful, just a time loss. But being able to get through a big portion of the cave without using smoke pots is also really nice for some later portions. So these green floors here do not have safe squares. I'm also very shortly going to kind of reorder a few things, our party. So I tend to keep, you noticed I tend to keep Zhang Bao and Zhang Fei at the bottom of my party. And the reason for that is that they are the first ones to go over that soldier digits threshold usually. And I want to keep them over those digits, so I put them in the least likely to be targeted position. Now, once Zhang Bao starts getting in the 3,000s and 4,000s, he's not going below that 1,000 threshold anytime soon. So now I want him higher up to take more damage to prevent the other guys from going below it. So very shortly I will be moving Zhang Bao back at the top of the party. So the magic number I am looking for here is 63,500 experience. Once I hit that, I will start using smoke pots. And this is a very, very wonderful one to go against. There's a few generals that have a lot of soldiers and nothing particularly dangerous. And as I mentioned earlier, the number of soldiers that a general has relates to their experience. So, the experience they give you. So, if you can kill a general that's completely harmless and yet has a lot of soldiers, like Shu Zhang here, it will benefit you greatly. Now I'm actually going to pull back and get a Wan Fu off on Jia Yun here because I want to keep him healthy enough. We're almost through this cave. $62,600. So we need about 1,000 more experience. That'll be one more general battle or 2 or 3 more rebel force battles. I'm not taking on Zhuge Jin because he has Hong Shui, and that could be problematic. Caught off guard. Boo. That's a battle I do not want to take. Oh boy. This could go very poorly. Cause us lots of issues. Please run away. Okay. Well, that's the risk of grinding through this cave like that. One more battle. Alright, should be good to go. You start using smoke bots. That's the scimitar here to watch out. So Nulong is the first of the legendary swords that we just got, and that the blacksmith made forever ago. And it's very strong. It is double the attack of the battle axe. I want you to do that, and then I want to pass my battle axe to you. The battle axe has a damage multiplier of 4. The Nulong here has a damage multiplier of 8. I want to use your smoke pots. So now this next fight has a chance to go one of two ways. It's either going to go really easy or really nasty, and it all depends on whether he decides to use Li Jian and land it. Because he's really no threat whatsoever, but Li Jian, my own party members, are threats. And so see, there we go, we just had somebody take a shot at Jia Yun, and now just finished off Guanxing. Must have been Guanxing that got hit, because once he died, it all stopped. So now we learned the magic tactic that we care about here. Oops. Then I'm going to use your Resurrect to resurrect Maliang. We're going to Chang Bao, Xing, Chao, Jia Yun, Zhuge Liang, Maliang. Alright. So now Ma Dai and Zhuge Liang are going to do a little bit of a gear swap. Ma Dai is going to send the scimitar to Zhuge Liang. We're saying goodbye to Ma Dai now. And Zhuge Liang is going to finally join our party. So this tactic we learned is called Ansha. And Ansha, as I understand it, translates to assassinate. And that's exactly what we're going to attempt to do. Literally, we take the general's head. Good. That's bad. Zhang Zhao here is nasty. He has Jimian, he has Wanfu, and he has no head. He has Jimian, he has Wanfu, he has Beiji, and then he has those tactics. Well, Beiji, the one that doubles damage, that applies to tactics as well. So if he decided to use, like, Dagre there, he would do very large amounts of damage to our party. Not to mention, he could use it on his allies as well, and they could do very large amounts of damage. So we're trying to take as many heads as possible before we end up in trouble. We are having very unfortunate luck with the Ansha here. It's a 75% chance it's going to land here on Bushi. It's only a coin flip against a lot of these generals. But specifically against Bushi, it's 75%, and so the fact that we failed it twice in a row is unfortunate. However, it's a coin flip against Zhang Zhao, and we got that first try, so we can't really complain too much. This is going to be our last attempt on Bushi. Zhang Bao's gone. We don't have any healing tactics, so not a whole lot of use in trying to bring him back. Fortunately, Shenfu by himself is not much of a problem. Alright, so now we're going to bring Zhang Bao back. You will notice that is a trend for the next little while, is there will be many heads removed. And once we get into Wei, they will do a lot more attempting to remove our heads as well, and there will be lots of head exchanges. Such is the fun of Ansha. Unfortunately for this game, there are 3 generals who do not have, who have an Ansha immunity. So it slows you down some. And the tactic that Zhuge Liang just learned is, an AoE healing tactic that does about 5,000 to 6,000 per person. Wow, that landed on Zhuge Liang. Okay. This battle can go awry sometimes too. Fortunately, we took 2 heads already. Xunyan is used, so we can't do any attacking right now. Oh, I lost track of what I was saying now. Oh yeah, there are 3 non-Ansha-able generals, and that, unfortunately, slows us down, because if they were Ansha-able, then, it would be... This game would get sped up by a reasonable amount. Now this is a coin flip again, and this coin flip is obviously not going in our favor. We could probably handle this guy by just all-outing, which is why I'm not too worried about it. It's the other guys that I'm more worried about that we got rid of on the first try, so I'm not particularly upset, but it is taking an unfortunate amount of time. There we go. We've removed the final head. And my last resurrect belongs to you? You. So I need to buy some more resurrects before we move on. I love what somebody said in another run I was doing, where it's funny because you can use a resurrect in battle on someone who just got on shot, so it's like, hey, Yeah, we can tape that back on and it'll be good as new. Alright. Now, we get my personal favorite part of the game. It's where every time I'm running it, I sing 50,000 pirate heads on the wall, 50,000 pirate heads. Yes, Onshaw is an intelligence check between generals. However, unlike the other tactics, Onshaw has an additional random value, or its odds are dampened by the general's intelligence out of 256. So, for example, Zhao Yun has the normal odds times about 0.8, so it's worse odds for him. Zhuge Liang's 255 out of 256, so his odds of hitting are roughly the same as any tactic. But Onshaw is less likely to hit than any other tactic. Alright, so we went and killed these pirates, who are apparently causing people problems. And we'll go back to the end to get our tactical points back. And we go talk to this guy up here, and he was complaining about these pirates giving them grief. So now that we've dealt with him, we're going to go talk to him, and he's going to give us a sword that they had, which happens to be Qinglong, which is another one of the legendary swords, which will be a great weapon for Zhao Yun to use right now. Has the same attack power as Nulong, which is the 8 multiplier, so very, very good weapon. Already went to the end, right, okay. So now we continue on our merry little way. And more heads for the taking. This one is a toss-up on whether or not it's faster to all-out or not, and save the extra tactical points, but we're going to go back to the end very shortly anyway to recover tactical points, so I'm not worried about losing an extra 10 here. So you'll notice I do sometimes pick Zhao Yun to do the Onshaw, and never anybody else except Zhuge Liang, with one exception. And there is a reason for that. And the reason for that is that, as I mentioned, Onshaw has a damper based upon your intelligence. So Zhao Yun, at best, has like a 79% chance of landing Onshaw, whereas Zhuge Liang, at best, has a 93% chance of landing Onshaw against, you know, a really dumb general or whatever. So once you start going below 200 intelligence, that damper hurts you so much that you basically can't get above 50%. Or very little above 50% at best. So, I generally won't use anything but beyond any of those. We learned Semyon, which is the final tactic in the game, and that put our tactical points at 134, which is a decent number. Certainly not something I'm going to complain about. Not as high as you would like it for having gotten the Fu being leveled, but certainly something you can work with really, really well. And then Luigi is like the gold standard of grindability. He is completely harmless, and if you run into him in the wild, he is worth a lot of experience. So he's what you want to fight every battle. But Gain one more level. And now we are going back to Jindu here. We're going to go to the inn. And we are going to make this trek again. To finally get to the town of Jianye. You're out of smoke pots now. You're out of smoke pots. I want to make sure I've got... Oh, you've got one more. Make sure I get that out of the inventory of my primary offensive generals, because they're going to need that inventory slot soon. So this is Sun Quan, who's the leader, who's now the leader of Wu, but before he deals with us, he's going to send some other guys to deal with us. So we're going to try to remove their heads. Now, Lu Sun, as I mentioned, is really nasty. It's going to be a coin flip on taking his head. Tai Cc should go pretty quickly. Unfortunately, every time they land Jimian on that first turn, means you have all the turns for Rebel forces to waste your time. And then sometimes Jimian lands, and all you have left is Rebel forces, and you just get to sit here for a little while until finally it wears off. And so now we're just suddenly going to go deal with Sun Quan here, with the epic music as well. Power pill. I want to use up all my power pills here because... Oops, actually, I want to use all my power pills here because I don't want to... shoot. Because I want to have my inventory figured out. And if everybody's out of power pills, it makes it a whole lot easier to deal with inventory management. So our Jimian strategy wore off. Theirs did not. I need to Jimian again, and then just defend. I can still try another one of these. So there are water tactics in this game that I haven't really talked about. I don't use them very often because in order to use a water tactic, you have to be at a location that's next to a river, or next to a body of water. And if you're not, then... this is probably the last one of these I'll do. Ugh. If you're not near a body of water, it won't let you use it. And so, in general, you're just not... that. You don't have one. You guys are all worthless. And we'll just attack here. Oh, I forgot to use Jimian. That's one of the reasons. Oh, it's still active. Never mind. Yeah, I forgot what I was getting at now, so. Got distracted by Jimian finally wearing off. Usually I all out at this point, but I think Ma Chao has another, but I don't want to while Jia Yun is under Li Jian's effect. No more power pills, no more power pills, no more power pills. Pretty sure Jia Yun still has one, but I can't really do anything about that. There we go. Now I'm just gonna all out. Unless my Jimian wears off. Alright. Well, that was an unkind way to finish. Well. time around. But that can happen sometimes. If Jimeon lasts a really, really long time, it can kind of wreck your party. He says he was deceived by Cao of Wei. So, that's who we're dealing with next. We've cleared Wu, and now we gotta handle Wei. Now we are going to buy iron helmets for everybody. This will be the last headgear anybody gets. I didn't think so. Alright. Oops. Alright, you've got everything out there, and then you've got a chain I might want to sell. Okay. So you have a scimitar I want to sell, yes. And you have a battle axe I want to sell, yes. And then we're going to flop items here. And we're going to send the crossbow to Zhuge Liang. And we're going to send the scimitar to Gongqing. So, the crossbow is actually does slightly more damage than the, too many goldings. The crossbow actually does slightly more damage than the scimitar, but overall, it attacks twice. So it's 2 hits of a multiplier of 3 versus 5 hits of a multiplier of versus 1 hit of a multiplier of 5. And so I like to, when you use a power pill, it only affects your first attack. So, while I'd like to keep Guanxing with the crossbow for most of this portion of the run, because overall it does more damage, I like to get it away from him when I get close to the point where I'm going to be using power pills. Let me do one quick inventory check here. You're good, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're good. Good. Alright, so there's that. Our NPC will move out of our way. We're going to do one safety save before we get to our very last trip to Billowing. It will not be a particularly exciting one. All we're going to do is say, bye-bye, Madai, you've served us well. And then I need to remember to go to the inn, because apparently I forgot to do that. And that would have been really bad, because I had no tactical points left. Alright, so now, on we go. I want to use yours. This is one that I find is just easier to just all out than to actually deal with Ansha. And now we get another battle that seems to be problematic. Zhang Liao, even though the odds wouldn't change at all, seems to be more resistant to Zhuge Liang's Ansha than almost anybody else. He seems to cause us more problems. Maybe it's because he's too busy taking our heads? I don't know. Fortunately, he just acted as much. Zhang Liao is actually a fantastic general. Unfortunately, they won't let you recruit him until much, much later. And as I, was so extreme about how Ansha rarely lands on him, of course I get it first shot. Maybe I should complain about every general that way. And now the next thing we're going to do is pick up this guy here, Jiang Wei. He asks, is Zhuge Liang here? Because he's a master of strategy, I want to have him help me out. Now, Jiang Wei is nice for two reasons. Number one, he's actually a very strong and smart general. And so, in your party, he's very good. He also has an incredibly high agility, so with Chi Tu Ma, he maxes out. And so he's great for dealing with status items. Real fast, this lady over here complains that she cut her foot on something that was on the over by the tree. So finally, after all these swords have been lying around, somebody suffered for it. Anyway, so Jiang Wei, he also is smart enough, or he's not smart enough to have Beiji, so he also has Ansha, yet he's smarter than Ma Liang, so we get more tactical points. So as a strategist, he's nice to have for Ansha purposes, and then when we're done with that part of things, he's nice to have for utility in battle as a status tactician and healing and all that fun stuff, plus he can actually do damage if he attacks. So, alright. Now I buy power pills for everybody here. I need to count these carefully. 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, oops, shoot. 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, and this will be 5 for Jayun, so 1, 2. The reason I have to count carefully is because I've actually got to leave a slot in the inventory open for everybody here because I'm about to buy them new armor. So I don't want to fill up their inventories. I want to get just enough so that they will have their inventory filled up when they buy the armor. So this is the last piece of armor I've got, and we're going to be buying. What did I screw up on Zhang Bao? Oh, he has a resurrect for some reason. You have a resurrect. You have a resurrect. Alright, well we're gonna pass your resurrect there. That's what happened. He's not supposed to have a resurrect. Okay. I only buy one then? Yeah. So, this Plate M offers us 100 defense, and like absorbs out of 256, and so With this plus the helmet we have, we are now at 190 out of 256, which is basically an 80% absorb. When I was young, my brothers and I didn't believe that armor did anything, because the first piece of armor we equipped didn't seem to do anything. And so, we never went through with armor. And that's a big deal at this point in the game, because enemies hit really, really, really hard. And, there's a big difference between them doing 1,500 damage and them doing 6,000 damage. And the end of the game seemed a lot more difficult to me back then. Wait, did I? Okay, sorry, I misread something. Actually, what is young lady used here? So now we get to travel on. We're going to try to take on Saupi. Who is the son of Cao Cao. But first, we're going to have to fight other members of the Cao army. So, with Saupi, you've got him, and you're going to have all the... Really? He landed that on Zhuge Liang. That's no fun. That's going to complicate matters if he doesn't avoid that. That's very, very low odds. He did not, so... The problem here is that Cao Ji here has on Sha, and so the more turns we stick around with him, the more likely one of our heads is to be removed. And that's undesirable. So we're just kind of wait briefly until we get Zhuge Liang back. He also has Jimian and Wanfu, so just trying to all out here is kind of a fruitless effort. And he's too smart for anybody else to use Wanfu effectively on. So it's just kind of the waiting game now. Or get really, really lucky. I mean, we could get lucky and have him not use it, or have him not use Wanfu, but ideally we want to just go ahead and remove his head and not worry about that. There we go. Head removed. And now we get Saupi, and he's like, I was going to attack Liu Bei anyway, so I guess I'll just crush them earlier than planned and take you out now. We are caught off guard. That is hard-coded that we are caught off guard. It is not bad RNG. There's Xiahou Dun. For those of you who are familiar with stories, I believe he was shot, if I remember correctly, and feel free to correct me, chat, he was shot in the eye with an arrow, and then he pulled the arrow out with his eye and ate it, I believe is the way the story goes. Which is why he has the eye patch here in the portrait. So it turns out that Saupi here has on Sha, but he's not exceptionally smart. And as I mentioned before, your odds of landing it are reduced based upon your intelligence. So it's not really super high risk to all out him here, even though he can land on Sha. As we saw, he just took Zhang Bao's head. Now, the Jimian can be more problematic, so we're gonna deal with that real fast. we'll just keep going on. He doesn't have Wanfu, so he's not really any risk in that arena. Alright, so now we're going to Gull Wing back to Jianye, and we are going to use a Resurrect on Zhang Bao. I'm going to replace that Resurrect real fast, because there are more beheading attempts coming up. And now we continue on our way to head to Runan Castle, where Cao Pi has retreated to. So, you will get sick of seeing this section of the map, that is for sure. Because this will not be the last time we make this trip. Alright, so now we're back to where we were, and we will continue on a very short distance to get to Runan Castle and deal with more of the Cao and Xiahou variety of generals. Obviously the Cao is part of the Cao family. The Xiahou family is... I don't remember exactly the connection, but they are related in some way to the Cao family, so... I want to say there was an adoption somewhere along the lines, I just don't remember the exact details. Fortunately, none of these Cao generals are smart, so we can take their heads with relative ease. Alright, next gate. And now we get the Xiahou party, who are also equally dumb, which works in my favor. Alright, there we go. Xiahou Dun was Cao Cao's cousin. Now that we've removed one head, we're just going to all out this one. Probably faster and easier, and we want to save our tactical points for the next battle, because there will still be more head removal. Alright, now here we are, back to Cao Pi. Now, again, since this time he's ready for me, again, they will catch you off guard here. That's hard-coded. Which stinks, because things like that can happen. Alright, so we are actually going to do a Resurrect here. this is the one battle that we were supposed to have Guanxing also using Ansha. But clearly that's not happening. I think I'll probably take one more turn before I all out just to Wan-Fu these guys that are down. Actually. Good. Now we're going to all out and hope for no beheadings. If there are beheadings, we are going to hope it's Zhang Bao or Guanxing. So now Sima Yi's army arrived, which was to help Cao Pi. But instead, he comes and he attacks Cao Pi. Now, Cao Pi is immune to Ansha. Yet, apparently Sima Yi is capable of removing his head, because he gives it to us. But he says, I claim Wei for my own. I'll take the head back, and he uses this thunder magic that sends us all the way back to Jiangyu. Now, the good news is that it sends us back with full resources, so we can just very rapidly make our way back. Now is when we change our party up a little bit. We're going to hand Chitu Ma over to Jiang Wei. We actually are going to buy one more Resurrect to take care of the beheading that happened to Guanxing. And then we are going to give all of Zhuge Liang's gear over to Jiang Wei. We'll be using him for the next little while instead, while using Zhuge Liang as our strategist. So I didn't mention it really earlier because it hadn't come up yet, but the last tactic we learned, Simeon. It's kind of like Jimian, you know, like Jimian negates all physical attacks. Well, Simeon negates all tactics. So if they use Ansha, if they use Jimian, Wan-Fu, all of those are completely negated while Simeon is active. And that's very important, because without that, the end game is nearly impossible. Oops. So, he sent us back with this thunder magic. And, if we go talk to Liu Bei after we came back, he would tell us that Guan Yu's son Guan Sua has learned something from a book he's read or something like that, and it has the counter to the magic. Well, the counter to the magic is just an input code that was almost a Konami ripoff, because it is up, up, down, down, left, right, up, down. So he tries to send you back with his thunder, and you put that code in, and the thunder will fail. It has been one of my biggest fears that I would lose a run to screwing up the code input. And in fact, I have screwed up the code input before when I wasn't paying careful attention and forgot that I had to put the code in when I walked into this town. So I will be very careful to make sure that doesn't happen here. And yet, after completely nullifying his thunder, they still catch you off guard, because that's how it's hard-coded. I gripe about that every time. Fortunately, that's the last guaranteed surprise attack of the game. So now we're going to go to more old-school strategies, where I Beiji everybody, except for I Simeon with Zhang Wei. So that when Sima Yi tries to use... Because Sima Yi here is very smart, second to only Zhuge Liang, has Jimian, has Beiji, and has Wan Fu. He also has Shuilong and Huashen, which are AoE fire and water tactics that are boosted by Beiji. And so if he pulls on a Beiji and gets one of those off, it can do 5,000 damage to all of your generals. That's hard to recover from. So, our goal is to always keep Simeon on and finish him off before he gets a chance to lose it. Now, his agility is very high, so even with Jiang Wei being maxed out, there is a good chance Sima Yi goes first, and you really have to cross your fingers that you land Simeon first. If he gets low enough, he'd use Wan Fu. Simeon wears off here, so I need to reactivate it, and hopefully get it there first, before like Jimian lands or something. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Zhang Wei is going to go first here, but we got lucky that Sima Yi just decided to attack. That's a huge fortune for us. Now, if it wears off here, we could be in major, major trouble. But it did not wear off. So, what we're going to do is... You don't have anything left. Don't need to do that. You don't... I'm going to go ahead and use that power pill. Okay. Using the power pills again for inventory management purposes. Even though I don't really need to, I can just all out here. Oh, I should have healed. Whatever. Actually, I could go ahead and finish off using my power pills, and everything will be good. Alright. So we'll just finish them off and use all of our remaining items. And then after this, we'll all out, and we will be done with our first encounter with Sima Yi. We got pretty fortunate with Simeon landing there. It's very soon, though, is the one where we're going to have tactical point usage is going to become a major, major issue, and so we need that Simeon to stick around. Alright, now if you'll notice, Zhang Bao just got 1100 experience, but everybody else is sitting at the 9,000 range. Now if you remember what I said earlier, the number of digits of soldiers you have affects your damage. So wouldn't it be nice if we had a few more generals that had just crossed over that 10,000 line? Well, it so happens there's this guy hiding behind Jizhou who... At any point, you can talk to him and he'll raise your level. Even if you're at max level, grinding-wise, experience-wise, he'll then, which is 50, he'll raise you to 51. And by doing that, he has now brought both Guanqing and Jiayun over to being above 10,000. And so that's a very, very big boost to us. So now we're going to get various stuff. We'll buy a couple of gold for Jiang Wei. We're going to buy power pills for all of our offensive generals. 2, 3. Oh, before I forget, we're going to drop our crossbow. And we're going to pass that to you. Then we're going to drop our scimitar here. We will have better replacements for those soon. And then, how many power pills did I just buy? 3, okay. So, 2, or 4, 5. You will get 4 power pills this time. There's one more exchange I need to do that I forgot. You are going to pass that to Ma Chao. Alright, there we go. Ma Chao, I'm going to give 3 to 1, 2, 3. Jia Yun gets 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gonna give smoke pots a couple places. I'll finish filling up Jiang Wei with smoke pots. Should be 2 more, I believe. And then Zhuge Liang should have 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I don't remember how many Ma Liang has still, so we're just gonna do this until he says there's no more. Alright, so we've gone to our inn. We're now ordering our party. We're changing the way we're doing things just a little bit, because we're wanting to make use of the fact that we have those 3 generals that have 10,000 soldiers. So, to make use of that, we are making Ma Chao, who does not have 10,000 soldiers, we're putting him more in a status role for the upcoming fights. Now, we're not going to see it here, because I've routed out smoke pots differently now than I used to, but we used to make good use of the cave glitch here, as I mentioned a while back about how the cave's encounter zone is based upon the last battle you fought. Well, when I went to Zhizhou to get my experience up, I would go outside and fight a random battle, which would then mean that if I did get a random in battle in this cave, it would be a very, very simple one, and I would be in no danger. Whereas if you get in a battle with Wu generals, you could be in trouble. I mean, with Wei generals, you could be in trouble, because many of them like to remove your head. However, now that I've routed smoke pots out, we have no risk of running into any kind of random encounter, so we have no need to worry about that particular issue anymore. And you'll see I find some walls that I'm going to hug, where it's a free run with no encounters, before I use the smoke pots again. Alright, so we've gone through the first cave, and this is the one where if we wipe at this point, we've got to go through this whole cave system again, which is why tactical points are so valuable, because if you run out of tactical points, you're going to be in big trouble. You've got to go through a little bit of a gauntlet before you get a chance to recharge. There are, well, depending on how you look at it, there was a legendary sword in the last cave that we don't get. And there is a legendary sword in this cave. However, even though it doesn't really classify, there's an even better sword in this cave, which we are getting at this very moment. That is the halberd. We are going to hand that halberd over here to Jayun, who is going to wield it for the remainder of the game. I mentioned before, you know, we have these damage multipliers for our weapons. Well, the damage multiplier for the best legendary weapons is 8, and the damage multiplier for the halberd is 16. So, it's twice as strong as any other weapon in the game, and it can wreck people, which is a very nice thing. Here we go, Qingguang, which, now, there are 5 legendary swords outside of the halberd, and they are, 3 of them have the attack multiplier of 8, one of them has the attack multiplier of 7. The ones that we have with Ma Chao, Guanxing, and Zhang Bao have the multiplier of 8. The one that Jiang Wei has is the one with the multiplier of 7, but Jiang Wei rarely attacks, so it made no sense to give him a better weapon, one of the better weapons. So he gets the dregs of what we have. Fair enough. You can't call the halberd a legendary sword. Be a legendary weapon. Alright, and then we have, I'm going to check it anyway, but we have this convenient battle right here, which is a really nice gear check, because sometimes I forget to equip those weapons when I pass them around. And if I all out here, I will rapidly see that one of my characters is doing no damage. And I will still beat this battle with ease. I'm actually going to pull back for a second, because I want to have Jayun over 10,000 to start the next battle. Very important. Because, unlike in some of these other battles, to try to get through it as quickly as possible, I am trying to manipulate a first turn powered up halberd hit here. So here's Sima Yi yet again. Alright, so it's Ma Chao who's going to use Simeon this time, and Jiang Wei, who's also fast even without Chituma, is going to use Beiji on Jayun. Jayun is a pretty slow general. So, we're going to hope we get a Simeon off, like we did right there, followed by a Beiji of Jiang Wei onto Jayun, which then means that now we have Simeon off, and Jayun on turn 1 can get 7,000 damage done to Sima Yi. So everything there went exactly as planned, minus the minus it wearing off, which is not how you want it to go. But we'll get another Simeon off. Well, there's no limit to how often you can use heals per se, but you do have a limited number of points, of tactical points that everything comes out of. Now, the major heal tactic that we have with Zhuge Liang, what makes it so overpowered, is not just that it recovers 6,000 soldiers apiece, but also that it only costs 4 tactical points. So it's very, very powerful. Ooh, that loss hurts. Now hopefully it doesn't run off here, and if it doesn't run off here, we are in fantastic shape. If Semyon doesn't run off here. If it does, we could be in major danger. Oh boy. Good. So it landed, so Sima Yi is down. Now, unfortunately, having to land a third Semyon is going to hurt us from the tactical point standpoint. And the other guys here in this battle are also not nice. Unlike last time where he was surrounded by a bunch of guys who had nothing but... fact, to that effect, I'm gonna just finish these guys, this group off, or this guy off, with the extra gear I have, in inventory management stuff. Yang Xiu here has Wan Fu and Jimian, and Jiang Gan here has Li Jian, so they can both wreck you pretty nasty even after you get Sima Yi gone. So ideally at least one of them goes away before Semyon wears off. Now this one we should be okay just going through. The nice thing about giving the halberd to Zhao Yun is he's smart, and so he's less apt to be affected by... he's less apt to be hit by a Li Jian or a Yi Shen. Alright, so now we've taken care of that part. But it's not over yet. We are not done. But what we are going to do is bring back our old strategies for one last time. Oof. I have 2 Anshas available to me. That's a big, big risk. So, we need desperately to land an Ansha on this next general. It is a coin flip as to whether we will land this Ansha. If both Anshas fail, the odds of us successfully finishing this battle are very, very small. So... oh, I must not have used my, smoke bot. Oh well. So here goes. Because Shenhua here has Jimian, Wanfu, and Ansha, which means that he's got the ability to basically counter anything you could do to him, except for beheading him. But we got his head, so we are in good shape. That specific gauntlet is why having tactical points is so important, because you've got to get past the Sima Yi battle with enough tactical points to have a reasonable shot of Ansha. I have lost many, many runs to right here, where I couldn't beat this battle because my Ansha failed to land and I couldn't go any further. So, that going well is very, very wonderful. This will kind of be the last level we will learn. This will be the last level we will reach. This will be the last level that we will take battles at. I'll say that. How many things do I have left? 5? Okay, yeah. So we're going to do a few more beheadings right now. Again, these non-shaws are strategically chosen such that we can get through as many gates as possible without having to refill. See how bad the Legion stays on Wansheng. Did not stay on long. Good. Alright, next battle. We have a general that's a little more obnoxious in the middle here, so we need to make sure that his head is gone before we all out, otherwise bad things can happen. Very nice. Alright, moving on to third gate. I don't know if you recognize where we are, but this is back to the to Luoyang, which is the capital of China. And so we are going back. It has been rebuilt, but it is currently being guarded and occupied by people we don't want to be occupying it. And that's about the best way, the best this entire little gauntlet here can go. In fact, it is the best this entire little gauntlet here can go, unless you try to on-shaw everybody in the first turn. Alright, and now we're going to go back to our inn. There are some interesting glitches in the game. The biggest ones are the extermination glitch and the 7th slot glitch. The extermination glitch we used at the very beginning with a very specific sequence of events. We actually removed several generals of the game from the early game, which made getting through the early game very easy. The 7th slot glitch is a glitch that you have to actually work around because it can cause soft blocks. If it has a glitch that can cause treasure chests to be randomly marked as open. And if an important treasure chest is marked as open, one with a key item, then it can soft lock your game, and you have to start all over. That's not an ideal thing to have happen. So these are all coin flips again. These are Sima-Yi's children, and they have all the nastiness that we've come to expect from all these Wei generals here. So we're trying to land on-shaw on them, and we just keep going until we land on it. To vaguely address what's being asked in chat, the estimate given for this game was very accurate, was a very solid estimate, completely coincidental when this run was submitted. There have been massive improvements to it since, which decreased that, but it was purely coincidental. There was no underlying comical meaning, and I'll leave it at that. So this is how this battle can go sometimes. is you just hope that you survive it. Or that you can land that on Shaw, or things get really nasty and you may have to come back, and coming back is a very slow process. Not as slow as it would have been, but this may be one of the worst sequences I've gotten before. And these AoE attacks are such time sinks. There we go. Alright, we've taken their heads of these children, and now here's Sima Yi to pester us again. My destiny is to conquer the land, you can't prevent it. Well, we're a little overmatched here, and given that Sima Yi is not unshawable, we want to get away. We don't want to be part of this battle right now. So we're going to use this tactic, Guifan, which is the only time we'll use it in the game, and it will return us back to wherever Liu Bei is. Unfortunately, it has a really bad habit of failing a lot, even when used by Zhuge Liang. The world record run took 3 turns for it to be successful. Alright, so we've done that. We've gotten away now, and we are going to Gullwing to Zhizhou and do one last trip of stocking everything up. Before I forget, I'm going to put Zhuge Liang back as a strategist and send all the gear back to Jiangwei, because I have forgotten that several times before in the past, and when I walk back into the battle and see Zhuge Liang there, I get very sad. Now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, everybody else has used all their power pills. We're going to give Chi Ma, no he is not, back to Jiangwei now, because we're going to use Ma Chao for offense again. So you need 3 power pills, you need 4, and you're going to need 5, yeah. 3, 4, 4, 5. One, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, now all you people in chat are gonna make me call that the Sir Robin strat. Go back to Shucho. Did I go to the inn? I don't believe I did, actually. No, and that would have been very bad. So we're going to go to the inn, and even though it's unlikely that anything unfortunate might happen, we're going to safety save anyway, just to be safe. Asha Holly there saying in chat, this is actually pretty friendly as a casual game if you can avoid the 7th slot glitch, soft locking your game, and you know how to do that, and you have something to tell you what the tactics do. It's a very friendly game. It's very fun to run casually. We played this all the time as children, and it was just always a really fun game. I'd come back to play it every couple of years. In fact, because of it, I bought the volume of 3 Kingdoms books, and what would happen is every time I tried to read that series, I'd get maybe to the 2nd book, and then I'd be decided I just wanted to play Destiny of an Emperor instead. So I never have actually finished the volumes. Also, if you have any interest in speedrunning this, we have a community that is very interested in helping anybody who wants to speedrun Go. We like the idea of more people doing this, so please swing by. There is a Discord. I don't know that I want to promote it right now because this isn't the venue for it, but It does exist. So we're gonna go now take all these people on again. Whoops. This time, much more equipped to handle all the nastiness they want to throw our way. Now, this one's... because we don't have a battle to fight after this, we can be a little more... you know, it's not as bad if Simeon wears off or something like that. However, we still need to have a little bit of fortune with it because we don't only need to make it through Sima Yi. Cheng Yu here has Wan Fu and Jimian and Ansha. So even if we get rid of Sima Yi, he can still completely wreck us. So we need Simeon to hold until both of them are gone. Once they're both gone, the rest of the opponents are all melee, and we have healing tactics that can completely neutralize that, and so there's really no risk. So the big risks are getting Sima Yi and Cheng Yu gone before our tactical points run up. As we saw, we just got an Ansha neutralized there. Alright, now the nice thing, as I mentioned before, with Power Pills, it is... the amount of damage you're going to do is predefined. So, I can attack Sima Yi here with Jia Yun and know it's going to finish him off. So I can go ahead and focus everybody else on Cheng Yu this turn. And there goes Sima Yi. Danger 1 down, and we haven't even lost Simeon yet. Which, of course, I had to say. But we landed that Simeon. Now we just all out and see what happens. Worst case scenario, I could pull back for healing, but generally speaking, I don't need to. Like, if Quan Qing dies here, it's not really a big deal, especially as long as Zhao Yun is healthy. We can pretty much obliterate anything in our way. So it's really not even worth pulling back to heal him as long as everybody else is in pretty good shape. Especially now that everybody's under 10k. Yeah, MDI, you have more soldiers at this point, but because it's only 5 digits, you're not actually technically any stronger at that point. And then, of course, we get the completely superfluous level up after defeating the final boss. So here we go. We talk to Liu Bei. He says, through everything, I've learned a lot, and I will rule fairly, but with an iron hand so that no uprising can threaten peace again, and there is time. well, thank you for the GGs, everybody. Thank you again to Feasel and SpeedGaming for letting me play this here. Thank you to everybody who's donated. It's an honor to get to support such a great charity. And yeah, it's a privilege to be here. So, as I mentioned before, the estimate was good at the time, but there have been a lot of routing improvements, and we have dropped the world record by 40 minutes since that time. So I was afraid this estimate was going to be a little too long. So I had my friends at the Dragon Warrior Randomizer community find me a little something extra to show off. And so we have a, the Dragon Warrior League, we have these tiebreaker flags. We're designed to be flags that would make the game as fast as possible. So I'm going to load up that seed.